I'd like to present 3 sets of numbers to you. The first number that I'm going to present to you is the number 4. The second one that I'm going to show you is 27. And the third will be 951. But before we get to that, this is your Week 13 recap. It is the end of the 2015 regular season of fantasy football. The winners are the winners, the losers are the losers, and now we look forward to find out who the champion is. The winner of the Ultimate Warrior division is Pedro with a record of 9-4. Pedro managed to score 1,179 points this season. Not even going to get to how many points he gave up because who gives a shit. The winner of the Macho Man division was me, Team Bundy, with a record of 10 wins and 3 losses. I scored 1,363 points this season, which of course makes me the highest point getter. And moving forward, though Pedro and I have a bye, I have the advantage over all of you if we just so happen to jam ourselves into a tie. As I predicted, J. Ray was the victor. He managed to defeat Joel. Why did I call him Joel? Managed to defeat Joe by a final score of 61-94. You'll excuse me if you hear other sanitation trucks outside. It's kind of late. He managed to beat Joe 61-94. So he is now the 6th seeded playoff team. Now we'll get to the playoffs in a second. As promised, I said I would present to you 3 sets of numbers. And like I said, the first one that I want to present to you is 4. I'm going to give you 4 records from one fantasy owner, his last 4 seasons. In 2012, this particular fantasy owner ended with 6 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. In 2013, he ended with 5 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie. In 2014, he ended up with 9 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. And just this season, he closed out his terrible fucking year with a whopping record of 3 wins, 9 losses, and 1 tie. And this week, he managed to tie with Orlando with 124 points. Of course, I'm referring to Andy. Now, I looked back on this stat because when I realized that he had tied again, I knew that Andy had a history of tying. I mean, I know there was that one year where for whatever fucking reason, I decided to take players out of the player pool and I sort of forced him and J. Ray to have a tie. I kind of just wanted to fuck over Jay or just meddle with Jay. It's all about meddling at the end of the day. You don't really take into consideration whether you give somebody a better chance because, of course, not them not getting the loss doesn't exactly hurt them. I mean, if they were about to probably lose and you just sort of decided that they would tie by pulling players and sort of manipulating the situation, you don't really take all that shit into you just want to feel like you just had some form of control over someone's season. So it's just to be a meddler, really, is why you do that. But as I said, Andy and Orlando tied 124-124. They were the highest scoring teams of the final week of the regular season. And what is it about Andy that just makes him tie? I mean, does Andy want to be attached to other men? Do you, Andy? Do you just want to be tied up by other men? Is that something that you're into? I don't know. You let us know, Andy. The next number that I'd like to move on to is the number 27. Now, number 27 is something. This particular number can weigh heavily on this particular owner's season. J-Ray has 27 acquisitions, 27 waiver pickups. Now, as I normally do this thing, I normally do it, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, whenever the fuck. So the selections haven't been made yet. Now, I would guess that J-Ray would at most make one pickup. I mean, from what I can see here, C.J. Anderson is questionable. It's not a definite thing, but if he's aware of this, he would probably tread lightly because you don't want to get too crazy. You've only got 3 more waiver pickups, and you've got 3 possible matchups. J-Ray, he's in round 1 versus Hensel. I'll get to that prediction in a bit. So you don't want to fuck around too much. I don't really predict that he's going to make a pickup, but it wouldn't surprise me if he at least made one. Maybe you could say that 1 pickup a week is good, but I tell you, when those injuries come raining in, sometimes they come in 2s. Deaths might come in 3s, but injuries, fortunately, I guess, come in 2s at a time. You get one guy who fucking gets injured in the second quarter, and he's pretty vital, and then you got one guy who fucking collapses in the fourth quarter of a game, and then all of a sudden you got to make 2 waiver pickups the next week. That's if you win, of course. But, I told you guys in the past, I told you, be smart with those waiver pickups. Now, let's see if this is something that'll hurt Jay. I certainly hope it's something that will, but, let's see what happens. I think Jay suffers from this because Jay has been fortunate enough. I don't think Jay's ever been a good drafter, and I think that he can admit that. He's never been a person who makes great selections. He normally whips his team into shape as the season goes along, and he's been pretty lucky to find some gems, over the last few years. Obviously, he had Josh Gordon 2 years ago. He had, Odell Beckham Jr. just last season, and he's pretty much trying to recreate that by making all these waiver pickups. Now, that's not something that you can necessarily fault him for because, we want people to be active. We all want people to, to fuck around and, make pickups and be active and good owners. But I think this season he might have taken it a bit too far. He might have been digging a bit. I see some people on his bench. Every now and then I see him make a couple pickups, and it's just guys that I never fucking heard of. And not to say that, that's not really saying much because I do have knowledge of a lot of these players. I don't go really in depth into like the really obscure players and the fucking, 4th wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals. I have no fucking clue. But J-Ray seems to be aware of these things. I don't know if he listens to, other sources, if he reads articles on this type of stuff, or if he just looks at the projections and just figures he's going to find lightning in a bottle. But for whatever reason, he's got 27 pickups. He better watch the fuck out. Again, I'm not sure if he's going to make a pickup this week, but if he does, and if he's the victor, I'll let you know whether I think he will be. But this could hurt him. This could definitely hurt him. And Jay, if there's one person that I'd hate to see hurt, it's you. It's you. The third number that I'd like to present to you faggots is 951. Now, much like the number 4, there's not really much behind this, but as I looked back into the papers, I noticed that in 2014, Joe had the worst record in the league. Again, I was shocked when I saw this last week, but Joe ended with a record of 1-12, and that to me that's just fucking nuts that Joe only managed to win one game. Joe finished with 951 points forced. 951. Now, this year's worst record, though it's a tie as far as wins and losses. Oh, no, my mistake. It's not a tie as far as wins and losses. I guess if Andy would have lost and not tied, it would have been a tie. But in any case, he would have had a better turnout than Eric because it would have came down to points forced. Eric managed to score the exact amount of points that Joe scored last season, which is 951. Eric also, he just didn't have the best luck this season. I mean, I didn't want to mention how much, points allowed Joe Dro didn't give up because it doesn't really. I mean, contrary to what Ed believes, it has nothing to do with what you do. The Dro obviously gave up the least amount of points. He didn't even break 1,000. Eric gave up the most. Eric just had no luck. He scored the least and he gave up the most. He gave up 1,256 points. The next person would be Paul, who gave up 1,221. After that, it's sort of there's a dramatic drop. So Paul and Eric, who both, didn't make it to the playoffs, just had really no luck giving up 1,200 points this season. But people really put their best foot forward when they were facing them, more often than not. But 951 is the third item that I wanted to present to you. And that's really fucking pathetic, man. I mean, but what are you going to say? Draft better, do whatever it is the fuck that you need to do. Now, let's get to the round 1 predictions. And you guys will have to forgive me if I seem a little, if my energy doesn't seem up to par. As I said, it's late, but I'm very excited about these matchups. The first matchup that I would like to talk about is Ed against Orlando. In week 10, these two teams faced each other. Ed won by a final score of 91-81. Ed, of course, has suffered a terrible injury. Terrible to him only. And terrible to Orlando, I guess, when you want to look at the grand scale of things. He lost Rob Gronkowski. And he suffered a victory. I mean, he suffered a loss against Hensel last week because, he put in Kyle Rudolph, and Kyle Rudolph managed to get an anemic 1 point. So moving forward, Ed needs Rob Gronkowski. But here's the thing. On the flip side of the whole J. Ray 27 pickups, Ed's only got 12. Something very odd happened last week when I defeated Ed. And I, of course, had the injury to Jimmy Graham, and Ed had the injury to Rob Gronkowski. If I'm not mistaken, Ed had priority over me in the waiver order. And I don't know whether he fell asleep. I don't know if he was just delusional about Rob Gronkowski's status for week 13, but Ed allowed me to pick up Scott Chandler. Now, Scott Chandler got a touchdown for me last week, and I think had Ed had Scott Chandler, he would have gotten the victory last week. Not that it matters so much to Ed. He still would have been second place. But what I'm saying is that he'd have a lot better chance of pulling off the victory this week if he had Scott Chandler. And also, he would have had one of Tom Brady's targets. So at the very least, he could have siphoned some of those points away from Orlando. I mean, let's say Scott Chandler has a great fucking, it doesn't matter to me if he does because I'm on a bye. Let's say Scott Chandler gets fucking 20 points this week. Could you imagine what a difference that would make in this matchup if Ed were to take 2 touchdowns away from Orlando? That's huge. So instead, he's got Kyle Rudolph. And Ed's whole team just reads off to me as just, Ed has Eric Decker, and he's very proud of the fact that he has Eric Decker. But Eric Decker's just, he gets the yardage, but there's just something about Eric Decker. There's just something about Michael Crabtree that it's like, they're now guys. It's happening now. And when it stops happening, you just won't be shocked. And when you are not shocked that a player is not going to produce for you, then you have something that isn't sustainable. You have something that's just occurring now, and you're just lucky and you're fortunate right now. but just something about depending on Michael Crabtree, who's going up against the number 1 ranked defense against wide receivers. And you've got Eric Decker, who's got a very good matchup with Tennessee. But again, it's not like Eric Decker's never blown up, all right? If I still had Eric Decker on my team, he would still be on the bench. Somebody who I would consider very comparable to Eric Decker, because they've been kind of putting up similar numbers. I think there's just a separation of about 20 points between them, is John Brown. John Brown's numbers and Eric Decker's numbers are pretty similar, except John Brown's got like bigger yardage performances. But John Brown's been on my bench this whole time. I mean, I've had injuries with Sammy Watkins. I've had injuries with, Mike Evans, or was that Weed? I'm not sure what it was with Mike Evans. So they don't have as many points as Josh Brown or John Brown or Eric Decker. But there's no fucking, and let's not even question DeAndre Hopkins. There's no way he's getting off of my starting lineup. There's no way I would take either Evans or Watkins off for Brown, let alone Decker, who's his quarterback. I just can't trust. You can't trust Fitzpatrick or whoever the fuck is throwing the ball over there. On the other hand, John Brown has Carlson Palmer, who's been he's been doing his thing. But like I said, he'll stay on my bench as just security, just in case somebody gets hurt. So when you look at Ed's team, it just reads off as just something that's just happening right now. And, with the addition of the fact that he doesn't have Rob Gronkowski, that definitely hurts him. Todd Gurley, he's been non-existent for the past, 3 weeks? I mean, if not 4. He's been sort of touchdown dependent. I mean, in week 9, he had 89 yards, 1 touchdown for 16 points. Week 10, he had 45 yards with 1 touchdown and 14 points. Then he had 66 yards, 1 touchdown, 10 points. And the last 2 weeks, he's combined for 6 points. So where the hell have you gone, Todd Gurley, who's going up against the 17th ranked defense up against the run? So I don't have too much confidence in Ed's matchups and Ed's team, and I do believe that the commish has a stronger chance to win here. He made the very smart move by picking up Danny Amendola, who obviously with the injury of Julian Edelman is, going to be Tom Brady's number 1 receiver. Even more so with Rob Gronkowski hurt, which then again, it isn't 100% confirmed, but it's definitely looking like it's going in that direction. And if Gronk plays, I mean, what the fuck is he, a decoy? Who knows what the fuck he's going to be? Doug Martin's got an interesting matchup up against the 29th ranked defense against the run, the New Orleans Saints, who everybody just fucking, that game, that was one of the best games that I've seen in a while, that game with the Panthers. That was just a fucking shootout. But that's a very good matchup for Doug Martin. And then you've just got Tom Brady, who just, I've always said, he's fucking Tom Brady. What do you want me to do? What are you going to say? You got a divisional matchup with Julio Jones. And again, there's something about the commission's team this week that just tells me that he's going to, he's definitely going to take this not as easily as my prediction would tell you, because obviously I'm leaning towards Orlando. I have them finishing out at Orlando at 97 and Ed at 86. I believe there's somebody on Ed's team that's going to overperform, and it's probably going to be Cam. But, at this point, if Cam scores 30 points, is that really Cam overperforming? Probably not. But, Ed's got Frank Gore, not excited about him. Todd Gurley sucking dick. Got a terrible matchup with D'Angelo Williams against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati's just fucking awesome. They're my defense. I should know. So I pretty much think that the commish will advance into round 2, and it's been a nice season for Ed, but it's going to come to a close. Now, our second matchup of the round 1 of the 2015 playoffs is Hensel against J-Ray. Now, in week 3, these two teams faced each other. And again, I mention these things only to just add color, only to add some history and a storyline. It really doesn't fucking mean anything. But Hensel defeated J-Ray by a final score of 107-64 in week 3. So they face each other now in the first round, and as I said, J. Ray's got that odd situation with his waiver pickups. Let's see what he does. Hensel's team is looking pretty strong, and what's scary about Hensel's team is this. Over the past 3 weeks, he's gotten inconsistent points from Phillip Rivers. And in week 9, before the bye, he didn't get much from Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers has had about a month to about, like a 5-week period where he's kind of been a bit erratic. He did get 28 points in week 12. But, I mean, you got to figure that, I mean, he doesn't have the best matchup against the 9th-ranked defense against quarterbacks. You got to figure that Phillip Rivers, draws up a 20 or a fucking 25. That's already going to put Hensel in a very dangerous area. He's got obviously Phillip Rivers, who and J. Ray has Antonio Gates, which is going to be interesting. Again, you do want to siphon those points away from somebody else's quarterback, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I revealed to you, which I probably revealed in the past, this is the reason why I picked Aaron Rodgers to be my quarterback. It's not just because of the fact that he's Aaron Rodgers. It's because of the fact that Jordy Nelson, I believe, got hurt, in fucking preseason? As soon as that happened, I knew I had to pick Aaron Rodgers because then there's just no way that you're going to get to me. There's no way that you're going to counteract. My touchdowns are going to be, with the exception of Cobb touchdowns and that amazing, touchdown that Aaron threw to his tight end Rodgers last week. Nobody's siphoning a lot of points off of me, and it's not going to happen moving forward. Cobb was Joe had Cobb, so that's it. From this moment on, who has Rodgers? Not sure who has. I mean, is Joe? Joe, I think he has Rodgers as well. Hold on. I mean, guys, I know I'm completely off topic, but let's see something. Just a second. Yes, he has Cobb and he has Rodgers. Yeah, so there you go. There's just no fucking way that any of you assholes can get to me. All right. So if he throws fucking 5-6 touchdowns next week, that's all going into my pocket. All right. So it's all coming to me is exactly what I'm saying. So you do want to siphon some points of your J. Ray, but let's see what happens there. I mean, I think regardless, even if it happens, I don't think this is so much of a situation of Hensel's team just being so good. I just honestly think that Jay's team just isn't that great. I mean, when you think about it, Jay ended the season with a record of 7-6. Okay, he won 2 more games than Paul. Paul still managed to score more points than J. Ray. You know who also scored more points than J. Ray? Joe. Now, it's not by much. I believe the margin is about 6. But hey, let's just say we had a situation where the records were exactly the same and that whole playoff stipulation played out the way it played out this week. They had the same record. Joe would be in and Jay would be out. So Jay's team is definitely lacking. When you take a look at where he's lacking, I mean, it's obviously in the running back department. Despite having 27 points a couple of weeks ago from C.J. Anderson, who I believe maybe he had on the bench when that happened. Latavius Murray, who had a decent outing just this week 13 with 15 points and 86 yards. I mean, Murray's just been, since week 9. I'll read off the points. 7, 6, 8, 7. And, of course, the week, last week he scored 15. So Jay's been very he's been lacking in that area because he's not losing it on the quarterback end. He's got that going for him with Carson Palmer, who's like the third ranked quarterback. Odell Beckham Jr. is basically still he's still putting up those numbers. Dez is also a reason. Dez is also a reason, with the injury to Tony Romo, and this has really hurt Jay. And again, this is when I tell people, I said, that there should have been, some moves should have been made here, something should have been done. And, instead of, staying on that sinking ship and sell high on a player, sell high on a player the minute that he showed any bit of potential, at all. I mean, at week 9 is Dez's best outing. I'm pretty sure Tony wasn't involved in that. Week 9, he was the 5 catches, 104 yards, and 16 points and a touchdown. Fucking sell. Just fucking put him out there. It just wasn't going to happen. Get yourself a decent running back. Shit, I would have taken him. Had you fucking offered me, are you kidding me? If you would have offered me Dez Bryant for, I don't know, it would have been possible that I would have given him up for Arian Foster. It's possible. I don't know. I don't know if not 1 for 1, but there definitely could have been something worked out there. So definitely probably should have made a move looking back, but of course hindsight is 2020. But this was a pattern that was developing, and you knew that Tony wasn't going to be solid moving forward, and Dez and Tony, that's the only combination that's going to work for Dez. So, as I said, J-Ray's team just isn't that strong. And on the other side, you've got Hensel, who's got the potential of A.J. Green just doing what he normally does. Allen Robinson, who fucking went bananas last week for 33 points. And Allen Robinson's he's just been great this season. Now with the injury to Allen Hurns. Is his name Allen too? Wow, 2 Allens. Just so you know, it's fucking late. Shit like this is like fucking fascinating me. Wow, 2 Allens. He's been great, and he's projected to get 12 points this week against the 30th rank defense against wide receivers. So Hensel's team, along with Thomas Rawls, Hensel did a good job at backing up Marshawn Lynch by picking him up. Chris Sims isn't going to do wonders, but who knows? Maybe he can get in there with his first touchdown of the season. Hensel's probably got to make some sort of a pickup. I don't know on the running back front, but let's see what happens with that. T.Y. Hilton going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and of course you've got Greg Olsen, who's always got fucking potential to get to get some touches with Cam Newton at the helm. So, again, I think Hensel will be the victor in this round 1 matchup. And I think he's going to win this one pretty decisively. I think he's going to win by a final score of 101-74. Do not ask me what I am basing these scores on. It's just something that I'm feeling out. I seriously do think that Jay's going to lose. And, of course, if that means that, if Jay loses, then that means that there will be a new champion because Jay has, of course, won the last 2 seasons. Good for Jay. But I don't think he's going to pull it off here. I think even if he beats Hensel, if he faces me, he's going to get his fucking ass whooped. And again, I do not say that to be braggadocious. Statistically, I am the last team that you would like to face. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen for Jay this season. So I think this will be more interesting. We're going to have a new champion. But, we'll get to that when we get to that. So that was your Week 13 recap and your Round 1 predictions. Give me Orlando 97-86 over Ed. Give me Hensel 101-74 against J-Ray. Meanwhile, Pedro and I are sitting back, just chilling, just watching you guys fight for your freedom, fight for your lives, fight for your fantasy lives. Go fuck yourselves.